What's going on? Welcome to Tech with Sean, and today we're taking a look at the ASUS Zephyrus M15. This is a thin and light laptop that has some serious specs, so stay tuned and let's see what this thing's all about. Alright, this review video is sponsored by nobody but myself, so if you want to, go ahead and click subscribe. That really helps out the channel, and we also have some affiliate links down below. If you want to use those help us out too. This configuration is currently on sale at Best Buy here in the United States. I'm not sure if this specific model is available elsewhere. I know sometimes Best Buy does do, exclusive models with vendors, so that could be the case here, but anyways, this is the ASUS Zephyrus M15, and this has the i7-10750H processor. That's 6 cores, 12 threads. It has an RTX 2070 Max-Q that has 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 at 11 gigabit per second, 16 gigabytes of dual channel DDR4. It's one 8 gigabyte DIMM, and the other 8 gigs is soldered onto the motherboard, so keep that in mind for future upgradability. For storage, it has a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, and there's one open M2 slot, and the open slot only takes NVMe, but the populated slot that the drive is currently in will do SATA or NVMe. They advertised the 240Hz screen on this model, and rightfully so because it's really nice. It's color accurate. I believe it covers the full sRGB gamut and most of the Adobe color gamut. It does 350 nits or so of brightness, and it only has a 3 millisecond response time. So with that low of a response time, you can really take advantage of the 240Hz screen, especially in esports games. The color and vibrancy are really nice too. I'm watching some 4K videos and stuff on it. Everything looked, really good. Nothing to complain about as far as a 1080p screen. As far as the I/O and port selection on this laptop, on the left side, you have the power connector, a network port, HDMI connector, a USB 3 connector, dedicated microphone and headphone jacks. Then on the right side, you have the Kensington lock, 2 more USB Type A, and then a USB-C/Thunderbolt port. Now this is Thunderbolt, and it will allow you to connect an external GPU or even charge the system over it. The build quality is pretty nice. The top of it is plastic, but it looks really nice with that pattern on there, and it even feels pretty nice. And on the inside, the deck is pretty solid. I think it's metal underneath there, but it has some sort of a non-smudge coating over it that also is kind of a gray color that makes it match the rest of the system. Overall, it's really solidly built, and I kind of prefer the subtle, professional-ish look it has compared to some of the, other laptops that are out that really scream, I'm a gamer. The keyboard itself is pretty decent. It's not mechanical, and the keys themselves might feel a little bit soft, but they also feel really durable. They're not too clicky, but they also don't feel like they're gonna just, click too hard one time and not work anymore. So I kind of like it, and it feels decent to type on. As far as the keyboard lighting goes, it is RGB, but it's all one zone. You can configure this in the Armoury Crate app. One minor quirk I had with the keyboard, by default when it's charging, it does this weird thing where it just flashes randomly. So go into the Armoury Crate in the advanced settings. Buried in there, there's an option to turn off the light when it's sleeping, and I would advise you to do that. The trackpad is pretty decent too. I've had no problems with it. There's no dedicated right and left click buttons, but you can just kind of tap on it or press down on it anywhere on the trackpad, and that works for clicking. So I actually prefer that to the dedicated buttons. It's kind of like a MacBook. Also in the Armoury Crate software, you can totally disable the trackpad, and that can be pretty useful if you're using a mouse and, playing with the keyboard. The sound quality is also really good. I would say these speakers are above average for a laptop. They're not quite as good as something like a MacBook Pro, but they're definitely deeper and way more vibrant than most laptop speakers. If you play with headphones, this also has a built-in DAC, and the sound from that is really, really good, I would say. This does come bundled with some ASUS software. There's a program on there called My ASUS, and I think that's basically just, for them to collect your user data and stuff, but it does have one really handy feature, and that's a battery life management thing. So what I do is, because I'm always playing with this thing plugged in, I tell it to keep the battery at only 60% charge. And that's not really going to affect things when you're playing plugged in, but it is going to really help with the longevity of the battery. The other useful software I would say it comes with is Armoury Crate, and I can't explain all of the features in here at once, but this is where you configure basically everything from your fan curves to the power plan to your RGB lighting to all sorts of different stuff. So if you've never had an ASUS laptop, definitely spend some time and familiarize yourself with this software, because a lot of the features of the laptop are going to be controlled through it. By default, there are 3 performance modes, I guess you would call them, inside Armoury Crate, and these change the wattage of the system as well as the fan curve. So you have the silent profile. This is going to have the lowest fan speeds and the lowest wattages, obviously. And for a lot of games, anything that's not really like a newer AAA game, this is fine. And like, if I'm playing something like an older console type game, like I was playing some Final Fantasy XII HD remake, and for that, I could run it super maxed out settings in silent mode and it played totally fine. It doesn't really push the system that far, and there was almost no noise coming from the system. So depending on the game, if you can get away with silent mode, it's actually a pretty decent one to use. There's also performance mode, and this is kind of the middle of the road option. It's not like ear-destroyingly loud, but it does allow higher wattages and performance. And one thing you'll notice with this mode is that the fan levels move around a lot more. So when it's not being pushed as hard, it's pretty quiet. But then when the temps get up into the 80s, it really ramps up pretty fast. And at its highest speeds, this one does get a little bit louder. And finally, you have the turbo mode. Now this one gives it the most wattage and it runs the fans all out. I think this is basically unusable in most environments. It is screaming loud. Most laptops, you know, I can deal with, but the fans on this, maybe it's because it's so thin, but when they're maxed out, it is like banshee loud. What I've done myself is I've set a custom fan curve, so it keeps things kind of quiet, but then if things get too hot, it shoots way up. So, you know, it stays kind of quiet, then at 80 it goes up a little bit, and then I have it basically maxing out if things get up over 90 degrees, because I don't want my chips to really be up over 90 degrees. And for the wattage, I think when you're on manual mode, it basically opens it all the way up, kind of like turbo mode. So I've used an app called Quick CPU, and in here I've turned the wattages down a little bit, and I've also limited the boost clock. So that combined with my custom fan curve gives me really good performance in most of the games I play, and I can always edit them or switch to a different plan if I need a game to run quieter or if I need a little bit more CPU power for something. I also installed MSI Afterburner, and in here you can overclock the memory if you want. By default, this comes at 11 gigabit per second, but I have run it at 12 gigabit per second with absolutely no problem. I'm going to show all the tests at 11 gigabit per second though, because that's how the system comes, and probably that's how I'm going to run it, because inside of a laptop you have limited cooling, and I'm not really going to push the VRAM that far if I don't have to. And honestly, when I was trying it out, it didn't seem to make a huge performance difference. Also inside Afterburner, I just did a really basic undervolt. But that was an overview of the system and how I set it up. Now let's jump into some gameplay and we'll see how this thing performs. Overall, this is a really great package for the price. These ASUS laptops have that premium feel to them, and this one doesn't feel like they really skimped out on anything major. The sound, the screen, the GPU, the storage, it's all there. You know, I grabbed this, it was right over $1,300 at Best Buy, and for a 2070 and the i7 and that screen, I mean, nothing out there really comes close. It's really a lot more appealing than some of the higher end options from other competitors, and a lot of theirs with these similar specs cost a lot more money. So if you're in the market for a $1,500-ish laptop or one with a 2070 Max-Q, I definitely would recommend this. I'll have some links to it down below. Thank you for watching along though. If you're not subscribed, make sure to hit that button down below, and I'll see you in the next video.